It's a huge blessing to be here today. My brief remarks today come from a lesson that I learned from a 19-year-old a couple of summers ago. So how many of you graduating seniors took Spanish here at CHCA? Just quick show of hands. All right. So my son had an amazing high school Spanish teacher, and so he's now a senior at Baylor. He has 4 majors because he didn't want to finish early. So one of those majors was Spanish because of this. So he did a study abroad trip in Madrid, Spain. He'd never been out of the country before. And this is the amazing gift that educators give to students. They broaden their perspectives and give them the courage to step into different cultures that he had never experienced before. So he went as a 19-year-old to Madrid, and we had never taken our daughters. I have 2 daughters that are younger than he is, but they'd never been out of the country either. So we decided to visit him in June of 2022. And we went at a time where this event has been going on in Pamplona, Spain for over 500 years. For some reason, people from all over the world think it's a great idea to crowd thousands of people into cobblestone streets that are about 20 feet wide as they release 12 1,500-pound bulls from the walls of the city to run into the bull ring. And people run with the bulls. I just want to be clear, there's no running with. The bulls are running and you're trying to avoid them. Although some people, because they've been up all night partying and running then at 8 a.m. in the morning, want to get as close to the bulls as they can. My wife planned the trip, I want to be clear. She planned the trip. And the first day we were going to watch, this was our vantage point. This is a 3rd floor balcony overlooking what is known as Dead Man's Curve. It's known as Dead Man's Curve for a reason. This is my smartphone footage, actual good use of a smartphone here, of what's going to happen as these bulls come around the corner on cobblestones. So just keep your eyes on that poster of San Fermin. Right in front of it, there's some somewhat tragic activity. I just want to warn you, no one dies in this. But I'm watching this with my 19-year-old son, hoping that this will penetrate his underdeveloped prefrontal cortex so that we don't have to run the next day, because that's his plan. So here we go. So parents, I just want you to know your children are much more prepared for college than my son was. The looks on their faces were like, that's the appropriate response. I look over at my son, and his response, that was awesome. As the man is being carried off the street with blood pouring from his head after having had 6,000 pounds of bull run over him. So for the next 24 hours, I have this dilemma. Do I do the stupidest thing I've ever done? Or do I, as a father, go with him in the hopes that I could possibly do something if a bull begins to run over my son? And so it's this terrible dilemma. And so the next morning at 7:56 a.m., we're on the streets. Here we are, all right? And it's begun to sink in with my son what we're about to do. So just look at the energy and adrenaline coursing through his body in just a moment as he realizes what's about to happen. And we are literally 4 minutes away from a gun going off and hearing 48 hooves on cobblestones running right up behind us with drunk and hungover people all around us. It's Mardi Gras with bulls. Ben, how are you feeling in the streets about 4 minutes away?
Little jittery. It's real now, we're definitely here, but let's see how this goes.
Okay, parents, you know that smile. That is not a smile of happiness or satisfaction. That is a smile of this is happening and this is all I can do. All right. So I have to take you back to the picture my wife took the day before on Dead Man's Curve. I will finish the story before I wrap up my remarks, but you have to see the picture that my wife took, because you've already mentioned you all were in 8th grade when COVID hit. And when I saw this picture, I was like, this is what this has felt like for educators and students for the last 4 years. Here it is. All right, so that was the video you saw. This is the still frame. So I started naming the bowls because I just felt like this really resonated for educators and for students as well. So there's 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. And then I had some extra bowls, so I started naming them how it's felt a little bit. And I've shared this all over the world, and this has resonated not just in the United States. And so here we have students. You're the poor guy that got run over by the 4 bulls, and then teachers only slightly better off. They're in the fetal position. Right. So as I go through my remarks, there's really only one word that I need you to remember today, because it's already been mentioned by your salutatorian and valedictorian. You're not going to remember very much, but it's just one word, which is run, right? All right? And run well, all right? So Hebrews 12:1 is not referring to running with the bulls, but it's a great commencement day passage that fits nicely. So the passage goes like this, if you don't know it. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders us, the sin that so easily entangles us, and run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Right? That's what we're called to. And to do that, we need to do 3 things. The first one is remember, all right? You've had amazing years at CHCA. That does not mean everything has been easy or fun. Certainly, learning behind plexiglass, learning on Zoom is not fun. But I want you sometime today to take a moment and think about some aspect of your time at CHCA where you suffered well. It might be in a gym. It might be in a theater. It might be as you practice an instrument. It might be in a class. But where have you suffered well so that you've been able to experience the joy that comes from suffering well? Where have you been pushed beyond what you thought you could do so that you could become more of who you were created to be? Think about that, because you've had so many people pouring into you to help you become more of who God created you to be. So please remember. Now, that does not have to be a morose or sad thing. Maya Angelou says, determined to live life with flair and laughter. Laughter comes when we suffer with each other and we know what we've been through. Your valedictorian and salutatorian brought up memories of things that were not easy. Certainly it's great to celebrate the good times, but we also have to celebrate the ways we are shaped through suffering, because Hebrews 12:2 says, for the joy set before him, Christ endured the cross. He did that for us so that we can have eternity with him. So first thing, remember. Second, unleash. Tim Keller, who passed away about a year ago, pastor in Manhattan, prolific writer and thinker, said this: every day I have to unleash my imagination about what Christ did for me on the cross. That is not just in the morning, but that's throughout the day. It's very hard to be negative, critical, and judgmental when you remember that the creator of the universe had to come to earth to die for you. It's hard to be that kind of hypocritical person when we remember that. We don't become more like Christ by trying to become more like Christ. We remember what he did for us, and then we allow his grace and love to flow through us out of his abundance to others. So on regular basis, whether it's every morning, throughout the day, live in that moment of unleashing your imagination of what Christ did for you. The last thing is, you have to say no to a lot of good things. Commencement is a celebration of all you've said yes to and all you've done. That is certainly true. I am so grateful that the people who planned your graduation said no to having it outside. I say that because just last week, I was celebrating my daughter, who's a senior in high school. She graduated from a large high school in Texas where we had 692 graduates, all graduating outside in a 9,000-seat football stadium, again, Texas. That's our high school football stadium, by the way, in 90-degree heat and 92% humidity. So thank you to whoever planned this for the air conditioning. You may be too cold. I'm very grateful, right? So that's not really what I mean by saying no, but David Brooks writes that a life of commitment means saying thousands of no's for the sake of a few precious yeses. If you're going to live a life that you unleash joy, that you see what Christ has done for you, you have to say no to many things, because each yes you give is precious. So as you look at the next years ahead, be careful with your yeses. Here's the good news. God has already said no to a lot of things for you. This is a very non-commencement piece of advice, but you all cannot be anything you want to be. God's already said no to a lot of those things for you. And I'll give you an example for myself first, and then a couple that might fit for you all. No matter how much I desire to be a U.S. Olympic gymnast, at 6 feet 4 inches tall and 220 pounds, it doesn't matter how hard I work, I'm not going to be an Olympic gymnast. Right? I also probably don't have a career in modeling. There are many things that are just not going to be there for me. For you all, if you went through Terry Parker's math class and you don't love math and you don't love kids, you probably shouldn't be a math teacher. If you went through the amazing entrepreneurship program you have at CHCA, which again I believe is the best entrepreneurship program in the country, in any of the Christian schools that I've worked with, and you don't want to be an entrepreneur, that's great. That's one less thing you have to consider being. So find the things where you have gifts and skills, and over the next few years, lean into developing skills that will make you valuable to others, because there is joy in a life lived for others. So lean into those things, and don't set all kinds of goals. Set habits. Pick habits that will make you more of who you want to be, because those habits each day accrue to amazing things as you apply spiritual disciplines to become more of who God created you to be, as you get filled up with His Spirit. The second thing is lean into where your identity is, not into what you want to will yourself into being. Your identity is not in your performance. You've all been successful. You're at CHCA. It's an amazing high school. You've graduated. But that's not where your value is. Your identity is in Christ. And that is where you always have to return to. It is not anywhere else. Anything else will be unstable and will not be anything that gives you joy for a long-term component of your life. So please keep those things in mind. So those three letters, R-U-N, remember, unleash, and know. That's all that I really want you to take away. Now, I do have to get you back to the goal of running with the Bulls, because I ran very well that day. It was the fastest I've ever run a quarter of a mile. And I jumped over 3 hungover people that had fallen down in the road. A bull, the closest a bull got to me was about 3 feet behind. I thought they were all by, and then all of a sudden there was one more. And I was like, oh, and I jumped quickly out of the way. I hopefully did not run anyone over. But you're not really thinking very much at that point. So the goal is to get into the stadium. So here is the stadium. They take the bulls in and they pen them up, and you just have a minute or two before they release more bulls. So I took this video very quickly. There are 20,000 people in there at 8:04 in the morning cheering, not for you, but for the bulls. Here it is. Exhilarated. That was insane. You could probably use both of those two terms for your time at CHCA. I can guarantee you the next 4 years are going to feel like that as well. It's going to be both exhilarating and insane. But because I'm in the arena there, that reminded me of Teddy Roosevelt's speech, the Man in the Arena speech, which was based on a book he wrote in 1899 called The Strenuous Life. And for 12 years, when I taught middle school students and had coached, every kid in my class had to come to the front of the class and after having memorized this quote, say it in front of everyone. So here it is. This is my encouragement to you. Far better it is to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to take rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy much nor suffer much because they live in the gray twilight that knows neither victory nor defeat. Now, that was 1899. In 2024, I'm not sure there really is a gray twilight. Either we are going to be the light of Christ to the people around us, or I think we're going to be living in a world of darkness. And that's not a discouraging reminder. Remember, Christ came and suffered for us for the joy set before him. There is joy in representing Christ in everything we do. And it's not our light. It's his light that we reflect to others. And so we don't have anything to fear because 2 Timothy 1:7 says, "For God gave us not a spirit of fear, but of love and power and self-control." So the work's already done. I pray that you will run well, and please know everyone in this room is going to be praying that you do the same thing. Thank you for letting me be with you today, and congratulations.